All right, Michael Raimondi here with my longtime friend Ryan Barry with the New England Football Journal, also a soccer enthusiast. We love all kinds of football here on the program. So the World Cup semifinals begin this week. Tomorrow, France and Spain, followed by Argentina and England on Wednesday. So we want to, of course, talk about everything that's going to happen. And we're just excited. We had the World Cup here. It was an awesome experience here around Massachusetts. Two local guys here to Boston just want to talk some footy. And Ryan, before we get to the games that start tomorrow, I just need to rep. We are wearing the Milan shirt today because I saw online that Gonzalo Ramos is in Milan. Their big signing, their record signing is in Serie A starting so soon. And for our Serie A team in Milan, I'm just excited to see him take the pitch for Milan. And of course, they got their Portuguese manager as well, Ruben Amorim. So very excited to see them this season.
Yeah, I actually almost wore that as well, so I'm really glad that I didn't, because it would have just looked like a Milan podcaster fan. So, but I've got the Ladek or One Ladakh FC. It's one of the, it's like I think it's some team from India and like that's semi-professional, but they're the first ever climate conscious team. I don't. It was from the mystery kit
I was
thing.
gonna say this is the mystery kit we did together.
Yes, this was our mystery kit where you got a second tier side from Turkey, and I got whoever these guys are. But honestly, I love it. They've got a really cool logo down here that's supposed to be a temple. So I honestly, it might be kind of cooler. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, dude, because I think when we were researching this, when we did this, I think like 2 years ago now, you were saying they were a newer club, and then I got Bursaspor in Turkey, and it's like, all right, it gives us a reason to watch a random league around the world and actually have a team, I guess, in those leagues. So, shout out Mystery Box for those. All right, so tomorrow is obviously the start of the Final Four here when it comes to the World Cup. France and Spain, obviously, for us. I don't know if we're really rooting for Spain because they beat our Portuguese team. How are you feeling about this matchup? Do you have a rooting interest, and who do you see ending up on top of this one?
This game feels like the typical, if you're a neutral, it's just fun. Like it's kind of like if you're playing FIFA with your friends and you're just like, "Oh, I'll be Spain, I'll be France." All right, great. This will be a fun game. That's what tomorrow will be. And you know, obviously Spain beat Portugal, a team that we both love. But it's kind of one of those where I'm just hoping for a good game no matter what. I'm hoping that it's exciting. It's sad that we only have basically four games left if you include the third place game.
Hmm.
But it's one where it could be back and forth and there could be a lot of scoring, or it could be a 1-0 France win or a 1-0 Spain win where they're both kind of playing, they're very resolute and it's very defensive. But my hope is that it's back and forth. We see some exciting football because I think that that's exactly what you want in the World Cup and the way how fun it's been. That what a way to go out.
And aren't these like almost the antithesis of when it comes to what they do on the pitch? You see France's attack, and they're averaging it's like more than 2.5 goals per match during this World Cup. I think the only time they scored less than 2 goals was that muck it up Paraguay game in the knockouts that obviously had its own controversy after the fact. So when we look at the Spain team, they have not conceded a goal, or no, Belgium scored one, I believe. So that was the
Yeah.
first goal that they have allowed in this entire tournament, which is impressive on itself. But I think for us, and maybe this is the American side of us as sports fans, we want to see goals, we want to see excitement, like you're talking about. Can Spain stop France? Because I think that's what it's going to come down to. Is between Dembele, Olise, and Mbappe, they've just been unstoppable pretty much, except for that Paraguay game. Do you think Spain have enough where they're able to contain a team like France, and also on the back end and on the counterattack, are able to they're probably going to need two, maybe 3 goals to win this match. Can they do that?
I think that they're capable of slowing France down. If there's anyone that's left in this tournament, I think it is Spain. And I think you have people who sometimes say, "Oh, this is the real final." And I think a lot of people said that this year about this year's Champions League, right? When it was Bayern versus PSG in the
I was one
semifinals.
of them.
Right, this is the real final. I bet you could maybe see some people saying that just because I think these two were the unequivocal favorites coming into the tournament. So, but I do think that if there is someone that will slow down France, it will be Spain. I mean, Cucurella is probably one of the best left backs in the world. Pedro Porro is an outstanding right back, and Aymeric Laporte's bounced around a little bit. He was with City, but then he went to Saudi, but he's back in Europe. So I think that he is still a solid option. But they have Kubarsi, who's kind of younger, so. I do think that they have the ability to, especially in that midfield. I mean, with Fabian Ruiz and Rodri, and I think they're a team that is capable of it. But will they? I'm not sure. But there is no team that's really so far in this tournament that, is more attack-minded that's been able to get through them. Honestly, the closest is probably Belgium in their form that they had because they put up
Hmm.
goals, whereas Portugal didn't. And this is, I think, where Spain is going to falter. This is their only real attack team they've played so far.
I mean, you look at some of the games they've had. I mean, we thought Portugal going into this were going to be one of the semifinalists, if not win this whole thing with that midfield. Obviously, that did not happen, so we don't need to dig into that because that is heartbreak for both of us and many people in the Massachusetts, Rhode Island area. When we talk about France, though, I feel like when it comes to the resume of this tournament, they have been the most impressive up till now. Spain obviously is that first match, they draw 0-0, 0-0 with Cabo Verde, and everyone's wondering, well, what's wrong with Spain? Well, we've learned that Cabo Verde is very good. They were, I think, flying under the radar through qualifications, being one of the teams in Africa to qualify despite the expanded tournament, and people were freaking out about Spain, saying maybe they're just not that good. I think as the tournament's gone on, they've built on that. They've gotten some, I mean, obviously Marino has scored some very important goals late for them. And it's just the classic Spain of they don't have the superstar up top, but they do enough to get it done. I just feel that for tomorrow's match against France, they're not going to be able to keep France off the board. I think France are getting two, if not three. They're going to continue that tomorrow because Spain are going to have to go forward eventually. I don't think this is going to be 0-0 or 1-1 for most of the game. I think France could end up going up 1 or 2-0 by halftime, and then Spain's going to have to expand. And we haven't even seen the best of Lamine Yamal yet. Is this a breakout opportunity for him to say, yeah, you're all talking about Dembele, you're all talking about Mbappe and Elise? Well, here I am. Is this an opportunity for him to maybe take over?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And he's had some moments. You think about the Austria game, he looked pretty solid. And in last game, he had a couple shots, but he hasn't finished. And I think that it's been kind of quiet. I mean, he did come into the tournament injured, so there might be people who will point to that. He's had a long season, but I mean, everyone else has faced that. But the point on France that I'll make is there's a lot of talk being made about, Spain's defense, how they haven't allowed many goals. France has allowed 2 goals in 6 games, right? The only time they've conceded was Norway in a game that really didn't matter, and then the Senegal opening match. Outside of that, since they've been in the elimination knockout rounds, they haven't let up a single goal to some, I mean, Sweden, you could argue, is not very good, but they actually had a decent amount of chances that game with Victor Gyökeres and Alexander
Isak.
Isak. Right. So, and then Morocco, of course, having a, pretty formidable attack. So it's kind of like it feels easy to roll the dice and you're going to get Spain 4 times, or rather France 4 times out of 5 to win. But you never know. It's a semifinal. Crazier things have happened.
I'm still taking France, though. I think coming into this tournament, it's not that I think this. Well, my prediction was France were going to win this whole thing. Obviously, we have a local connection with France. They're staying in Boston. They're training here in Waltham, not far from where I am. I've covered Mbappe. I've been able to ask him questions. So to see them up close is impressive. We saw them in Foxborough for the friendly back in the spring. They played against Norway. You were just talking about that game. I know they played the Norway backups, but I think we realized Norway's a legitimate team. I'm looking ahead
Yeah.
in a couple years for the Euro for Norway. Like they could be one of the semifinalists for in a Euro in a couple of years. So I think they had an impressive tournament. But to me, I just think France are just too good. And you talk about, the attack and how maybe their defense is kind of not making headlines because of some of those star players they have in the attacking third. I just think France have too much. I don't see them unless they stop themselves and they have all these opportunities and it's one of those frustrating games for a fan base where they just can't put that goal or get that goal to go ahead and seal the deal. But they haven't had issues like that all tournament. I don't think that's going to start tomorrow. I think France are just going to be able to eventually break down Spain enough where they get a win. And I don't want to say handedly, but I don't know if the score may indicate that it's closer than if you're watching what it actually is on the pitch.
Yeah, and it's funny because Spain haven't had to, other than of course the Cape Verde game, haven't had a lot of adversity in this tournament, and neither have France to some degree. But it's like you said, can they come back if they go down? And I do they have the ability to do so? And that's really what I question because you look at France and what are their holes? We can go on and on about Ryan Cherky's being on the bench, right? But in Rabiot in the midfield, and that's their where their big fault is. But Rabiot has looked decent in this tournament, right?
I
Like
say
he's
very
someone who
good.
always like, how does he keep getting included? How does he keep included? But you know what? He plays and he shows out and he does well. So it's just if I think you made a great point in that if Spain gets down, can they compete? Can they go back and forth? And I think they have it within them, right? But it's been a while since they've really been tested like that. And I'm going to pick France as well, but again, it's one of those things where it feels easy to pick France, but you never know.
I think in this matchup, just how good France are. Again, I just don't think Spain can hold them off long enough. And you make the points about sometimes it's not the best players out there. We saw that Portugal, maybe individually and for their clubs, have some of the best players in the world. Well, they didn't all work together. Bruno Fernandes, João Neves, and Vitinha. Yeah, maybe they're three of the top 5 to 8 midfielders in the world. And they didn't work together. And that's a credit to France here, where okay, maybe you thought Turkey was going to be a big part of this. Maybe you weren't expecting Rabiot to have a great World Cup, but Deschamps has made the right calls and put the right team, the right lineup together in formation where they don't seem to have a weakness, and I don't think that's going to change. All right, so we both got France against Spain or defeating Spain on Tuesday. Let's move ahead to Wednesday now, and I know this game is personal for you. You have your England side of the family lineage that you want to support them, and then you have your I hate Argentina side as a Portugal guy. So, where do you want to start with this? I mean, Thomas Tuchel, very harsh on the team, even on Jude Bellingham and him coming back, Jude Bellingham, and saying, hey, like, we got the win. We're in the semifinals here. So, what do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, it's funny that's like to your England point. Like it's like my rule growing up was I will support anyone I have ancestral lineage, and I have one great grandfather with England, and I grasped onto that as a kid because God knows that the Irish side of all of my dad's family, they're not making a lot of noise. So at least I have some fun to root for with the English there. But similar to that, as far as having fun, it hasn't been the most fun supporting England in this tournament. And maybe I'm a bad fan because you have multiple interests. I think it's a little different internationally sometimes.
I
But
agree.
when you think about this tournament they've had, it hasn't been truly outstanding. I thought that it was going to be a lot different after that Croatia game, right? It was back and forth. You win 4-2, and you're like, oh, okay. Thomas Tuchel's he's nailed it. He's able to pick these guys that can score. And then you fall flat with Ghana, the game that I was at. Of course, the one game that they play, 0-0 draw, they look terrible,
Your
right?
first
But
World
even
Cup
against Panama,
experience.
right? But even against Panama, it wasn't very convincing. It wasn't until I think maybe the 65th minute, 70th minute, where they started to kind of put some shots on net. So I think you can point to the Mexico game as kind of the crown jewel so far of this England experience. And yes, they'd had less possession, but their ability to go and basically play an away game in like in Tuscaloosa or Cameron Indoor Stadium, right? You're playing in this hostile environment, and to win as they did is easily, I think, the most resilient. And in my opinion, I think that's the best win of the tournament for any team for the World Cup. And I know that that may be overzealous to say, but I just point to me another team that went into a place like that and was able to win. And it's hard to say that, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe Portugal getting a draw against Colombia when it was basically home for Colombia, but it pales in comparison.
Yeah.
So I don't think England have looked that impressive, but they have enough quality and they have a vision with Thomas Tuchel that's able, I think, to beat teams and it's able to overcome, a tough game against Norway.
Well, here's a question I think is worth talking about. And, you have your differing opinions on someone like Tuchel, again, the manager being very hard on his players. And some of the commentary from the UK has been very hard on this team. Well, they didn't look that good. Norway had a couple opportunities. They, could have changed the game. Holland wasn't that great. But at the end of the day, you're in the semifinals. And the way I look at it is you think back to Portugal, that 2016 Euro, they probably weren't the best team game by game through that tournament, and somehow they made it to the finals and beat France on their home soil. So does it really matter how the games look if England is finding ways to get by? You talk about resiliency in that Mexico game. They've showed that against Norway as well. And Jude Bellingham is, we talked about Harry Kane being maybe England's most important player, and it seems that Bellingham has taken that over during this tournament. So does it really matter what the style points are if they're going to keep advancing and potentially get to a final here?
Yeah, and it feels kind of like that's just the English way. Yeah, I don't, and
Yeah,
last game you were kind of hoping for, in the Southgate football to be in its past, and I think Tuchel's kind of moved a little bit past that. But we're talking just 2 years ago, England made it to the final of the Euros and lost unceremoniously to Spain, but they didn't look very good in the Euros. I think a lot of people just have this idea that they usually get through and well. If you're in England, right? Like
they
they'll be
sure
able to
do.
point every single tournament, right? But like the casual footy fan who only maybe checks in with England and just thinks it's a big name, say no Premier League, like they only beat Serbia in the group stage and they drew Denmark and they drew Slovenia. They took penalties against Switzerland. Like this is just kind of who they are sometimes. That they don't really have, they might have one or two games where they look outstanding against a great team, but this is just kind of who they are. And who will rise to the occasion next game? Is it kind of like flip-flopping? So they didn't look very good against Norway, look solid against Mexico. Is this going to be a game where it's like we're going to look good against Argentina? And I think what really benefits them is the fact that this game is indoors in Atlanta.
Yes.
And I think that you think about, the Azteca and even the game the other day, which I believe was in New York. I can't remember where that was against Norway.
That
Or
was
maybe
Miami, I believe.
Miami. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, Miami. Um, to, they've been playing outside in the elements, and now they've got this. They're going to be inside, and I think that'll level the playing field a little bit for them too.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, the elements have been kind of crazy out there in certain arenas, certain venues for the heat, the humidity. Absolutely. And we talk about England. They're going up against Messi in Argentina. So much to say about them, from Messi not getting that red card back in the group stage to some of the calls going their way, or maybe calls going a little bit stricter against their opponents. So I don't think Argentina has been all that impressive. I give them credit. You find ways to win. We were just talking about that with England, right? Maybe it's not the sexiest and they're close games, but they're finding ways to win. And that is a sign of a good team, in my opinion. What do you make of Argentina, and what do you think of their recent performances? And are they a team that England can beat?
I think they are, but it's just it's one of those things where some teams I just think have something. If they have a player like Messi, it's just there's just this it factor that no matter who you play, I think they're going to be fine. Everyone is chalking up the fact that this is the first team that's never had to play, I believe, a top 15 team en route to a semifinal. But sometimes you just play who you play, right? And I also think it's not as simple as, the tournament was fixed for them to have all these opponents because no one saw some of these teams that they were going to be playing. Everyone thought that it was going to be Portugal versus Argentina in the quarterfinals,
Right.
right?
They did what they had to do. They won their group, and this is the path.
Right. So we can get mad all we want and we can say, oh, it should have been this team, it should have been that team, but they play who they play. Now, the only argument you can make is that they've been playing teams that aren't very outstanding and it's taken some effort. It's taken a lot of effort to beat teams. So, oh, when they finally run into a juggernaut, they're screwed. But I just think that when you're Argentina, you have the experience. I think they can kind of mess around a little bit. They kind of know. Like I think that game was impressive against Egypt in terms of coming back to win.
Yep.
Them tying it was less impressive because I just feel like they had that in them. Winning in regular time was impressive. I thought that was going to go to even penalties, but I just think that England are going to struggle with them just for that it factor in the vibes factor, and it may sound corny to say.
So maybe when it comes down to it, if it's, tied in the 80th minute on, you think Argentina has the leg up because they've proven they can come from behind, whether they're down against a team like Egypt, or, Cabo Verde just keeps coming back to tie the game, but Argentina obviously gets the final blow in that game. So you see if it's close at the end, that is advantage Argentina. So do you think if you're England, you need to get ahead and really start
Yeah.
separating yourself early?
No, that's an excellent point. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. If you start getting into that kind of uh, you know, tight neck time where you're like, oh man, like it's 1-1 or we're only up 1-0 or it's 2-1 and it's the 80th minute. Like I don't know how you can sit there as an England fan and feel comfortable. And that's where it's going to be tough. But I do think that England have that midfield that's able to match a lot of what Argentina can do, especially defensively, by limiting Leo Messi. So that is where I do feel like they're going to finally run into someone that could have a plan against them, and then also has the skill to go on the counterattack and score with England, right? With their wingers. I know Anthony Gordon's looked so, and Nani Madueke, there's a lot of opinions about him. I think he's actually looked pretty good so far.
Hmm.
But it's an EPL midfield as well for Argentina with Enzo Fernandez, Alexis McAllister. So it, it it's going to be a great game, but I do think that I give the nod to England not just because I have a semi-rooting interest.
I think it's also, to me, that England has looked more impressive. And as we were talking about, the press and the coach and the manager maybe aren't the most impressed. But again, we talk about their last three wins. You find a way against the Congo. You find a way against Mexico, like you said, basically on the road in Mexico, humid, hot environment at the altitude. And these aren't necessarily excuses that they lose, but I think you get credit when you go into those environments and find a way to win. They hang on to beat Norway. Again, when you're not having your best day and you still win, I like that. That's what I want from my team. That's what I would have loved to see from a team like Portugal or the United States men's team. Like, okay, we're not having our best day. Let's change something up and just find a way to get it done so we live to fight another day. So now, as we look at this matchup, we've talked about it. Do you think England actually get it done and are able to take out Lionel Messi and Argentina?
Yeah, I do. I think if I had a rooting interest and I had to put money on the line because I was sponsored by some sports gambling site, I would pick England and I would probably go something like uh 3-2 or like two. I do think obviously that Argentina would get one. 3-2, 3-1 would be in that ballpark just because I think that you look at the amount of goals that Argentina are giving up. Three to I'm sorry, two to Egypt, two to Cabo Verde, right? It's their teams can get past them. So I rate England to win this, but I also would if it's 1-1 and it's a 75th minute or it's 2-1 England, I absolutely think Argentina can win just from vibes alone. I don't think it's going to be something where there's some egregious something or other and it's fixed. And
Oh,
I
let's hope
just,
not.
right. Because I have my issues with Argentina are just those bits, right? And you look at some calls that get for some teams and then for them, and that's where it's just the fairness part. But I do think that it's going to be a game that there will be maybe a little bit of controversy, but if you're England, that first goal shouldn't have counted against Norway. The game should have been ruled dead when the ball hit the wire in the middle of the field, right? So things happen for both teams, but I just
Yeah.
think sometimes Argentina happens a little more.
Yeah, I mean, FIFA's got plenty to concern itself around with the VAR, something like the wires, the whole, it seems Argentina are getting calls
Yeah.
and other teams are getting harsher calls. So they definitely got a lot to figure out there. Um, so I think we're both in agreement then. We're expecting to see France and England in the final. And what I would love to see on Wednesday, Rye, in that England Argentina game, if it is close, if it's a tie game heading into those 75th, 80th minute on, I want to see Tuchel in those moments with some of the decisions he makes to see if he can make that substitution. We'll see who he ends up starting at the wingers and stuff, and if he makes the right decision to help England find a way to get through because at the end of the day, he's just been such an interesting person through this with his post-game press conference. The fact that no foreign managers ever won a World Cup before, and you obviously have a German in England after Southgate getting them close to winning trophies, but not pushing them over the line, obviously. And as we were talking about, the teams maybe not performing their best, we talked about Portugal in the 2016 Euro, right? And ended up finding a way to win that. And then there was Italy, which you took me to a bar in Cambridge, Massachusetts, you said was neutral. I walk in with my Italy jersey and, oh, it's Phoenix Landing and there's Liverpool stuff everywhere. And where do, Italy hasn't qualified for 3 World Cups and somehow they won a Euro amongst all this. So it can be done. And I know these are 2 Euro examples, not quite the same as the World Cup. But at the end of the day, in 10 years from now, if England wins this thing, no one's going to be talking about, well, that Norway game. They really weren't that great. Tuchel wasn't happy about it. If you find a way to lift the damn thing at the end, no one's going to care about any of that.
Right. And it's going to come down to, I mean, cynical English fans, who've been wishing for it to come home any tournament at this point. Will say, oh, it's easy to look at glass half empty, right? But so many teams would kill for their footballing resume. I mean, just Gareth Southgate alone, I would be fine with, in terms of what they were able to do. Of course, you don't want to lose, but I do kind of have a bit of a feeling that if England can get past Argentina and they do play France, I think it'd be something like a 3-1 France win. It's really hard for me to see England beating them. I just don't know if they have the quality to match them. I mean, there's a familiarity factor with a lot of the players, perhaps,
Yeah.
but if it's Spain that beats France, I think England will win that game just on the sense of they'll want revenge from Euros a couple years ago, and I just think they match up a lot better against them, and it can
Okay.
go toe to toe more. But so I still think that France is my betting favorite. That's who I would take to win it all. But I really think that the quality of England is still outstanding enough to be able to get to that point and have them be in the conversation.
Yeah, and being down reporting outside of Foxborough or in Foxborough at Boston Stadium for the last match a few days ago now, last week, a lot of people were like, let's run it back. Let's run it back. We want the finals from 4 years ago. We want France and Argentina. A lot of people are just saying, yeah, Mbappe and Messi. How does it get better than that? And it's like, yeah, for like that would be cool. I was even saying this on 98.5 with Matt McCarthy last week. I just think for watchability, it would be fun to see. I mean, at that time, England and Norway hadn't played yet. I thought Mbappe and Erling Haaland would be an amazing watch. But I would take Mbappe versus England, France versus England, Mbappe, Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham. I mean, these guys have been awesome. The stars have risen to the occasion. We're seeing so many goals in this tournament from some of the world's best players. And so at the end of the day, while you have your rooting interest on a team, I think both of these games are going to be fun watches. And I think there's going to be goals. I think France is going to provide those, maybe not so much Spain, but I think England and Argentina, I think both of them are probably scoring two in that match. It's just who's going to get to three. I think three is sort of the magic
Yeah.
number in that one. And
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, no, no. I like I don't see anyone getting four to beat someone with three, just the way that these games have gone for either team. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of four-goal games anyway, but it's it's going to be a lot of fun, but I just hope they're not duds. End of the day, we just hope that they're not duds. I mean, a
Yeah.
rematch honestly would be so much fun between France and Argentina, but I think, like you said, a France-England final. There's a lot of juice there because there's more stars than the Spanish team, of course, than Lamine Yamal and such, and how ceremonious would it be for a final to be held in the United States with France versus England? The team that quote unquote came here, England that came here, and then the French were here, and they were allies and battling each other here. It would be very historically symbolic, I feel like, for the French and English against each other.
Yeah, so if you can't tell everyone, Ryan is a history junkie over there.
Yeah.
So appreciate everyone listening. If you enjoyed what you've heard, you could always subscribe to our page. We're going to try and do more soccer content, focusing on, the big players after the World Cup ends. We want to continue talking about some of the players you saw here in Boston, Mbappe and Holland, some of these other stars, what they're doing overseas. Because I think this World Cup has really brought people in to really wanting to see these players more and find an outlet where people can listen to it more. So again, subscribe, like this video, appreciate it. Ryan Barry from the New England Football Journal. He doesn't just talk American football, folks. He also loves world footy. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. One of the best rising stars of footy in New England. Killing it on 98.5, Boston 25. That's the man to go to.
All right, we love it, brother. We'll talk to you soon. We'll do another video after the semifinals. We'll see you then.